Welcome to Tattletale. Here's today's story. My brother stole our inheritance, so I took back everything, piece by piece. I never expected my father's funeral to end with a betrayal, but maybe I should have seen it coming. My name is Ethan, and I'm the second of 3 siblings. My older brother Jacob was the golden child, the firstborn with all the charm and confidence. My younger sister Maddie was the peacemaker, always trying to keep the family together. Me? I was the quiet one, the responsible one, as Dad used to say. Our father, Gerald Bennett, was a self-made man. Grew up dirt poor, started his own construction business, and by the time he passed, he'd built it into a small empire with over 200 employees and contracts across 3 states. Dad wasn't flashy, but he was meticulous. Everything he did had purpose, right down to how he'd talk to each of us about our future roles in the business. Jacob was supposed to handle marketing and growth. I was the one managing operations and numbers. Maddie wanted nothing to do with it, pursuing social work instead. And Dad respected that. The will was supposed to reflect everything he'd said over the years. But then the lawyer read it, and everything spiraled. Jacob was named sole heir, sole owner of Bennett and Sons. Every asset, every share, every property his. Me and Maddie, we got trust accounts with modest sums. Not enough to even buy out a share of the company. I stared at the lawyer, then at Jacob, who didn't look the least bit surprised. Must have changed it before the surgery, Jacob said with a shrug. Guess Dad realized I was the only one with the guts to lead. Maddie burst into tears. I walked out, but I didn't scream. I didn't threaten. I waited, because something didn't add up, and I was going to find out exactly how deep the betrayal went. The next morning, I drove straight to my dad's office, the one he'd used for years at the Bennett and Sons headquarters. I still had my key card. No one had revoked my access yet. Everything was just as he left it. Coffee mug still half full. Notes scattered across the oak desk. His planner open to the week of his surgery. I sat down and started combing through files. Contracts, ledgers, email printouts. Dad was old school. He printed everything. Even his emails were labeled in folders by year. And then I found it. A folder marked legal, revised will drafts. Inside were 3 drafts. The latest was dated 2 weeks before his surgery. It listed me and Jacob as co-owners. Maddie was still given her trust, with an added clause that allowed her to sit on the board if she ever chose to. But that wasn't the version read at the funeral. I double-checked the lawyer's version, emailed to me just yesterday. The one Jacob benefited from. Different file name, different formatting, different firm. Not even Dad's usual lawyer. So I did what I had to do. I drove straight to the law office that handled our dad's affairs, only to find out that version of the will came from Jacob's personal attorney. And the signature on the document? It looked like Dad's, but something about it felt off. I asked the secretary if she had the signed copy on record. She did, and let me take a photo. When I compared it to checks Dad had written me just a few weeks before his surgery, the signatures didn't match. I knew then, Jacob forged it. He'd stolen everything. And now, I was going to take it all back, piece by piece. I didn't confront Jacob. Not yet. You only get one shot at burning someone like him down. I wasn't going to waste it by yelling into the void. Instead, I called Maddie. I told her everything. The fake will, the signature, the paper trail. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She asked one question. What's the plan? That's when I knew she was in. We started quietly. Maddie had a friend from college who worked as a paralegal at a firm that specialized in fraud and estate disputes. We booked a consult under an alias. Showed them everything. Files, photos, timestamps. The paralegal didn't even blink. Yeah, she said, that signature's fake. And if you've got access to the original drafts and proof the lawyer wasn't your father's, your brother's in deep trouble. The legal route was one option, but it would take time. Court cases, paperwork, motions, months, maybe years. I wanted something faster, more surgical, so I started chipping away at the business. See, Jacob may have stolen ownership, but he had no idea how to run operations. That was my domain. Most of the senior staff still reached out to me, even after the funeral. So I leaned into it, advised them quietly, pointed out flaws in Jacob's decisions, helped the site managers dodge his worst calls without him even knowing I was involved. And Maddie? She reached out to a local reporter who was investigating small business fraud and shady estate practices. Fed them just enough to raise eyebrows, anonymously. Then I started buying. Old suppliers who Jacob had alienated. I bought up their contracts under a shell company. Independent contractors who were pulling away from Bennett and Sons. I offered them better deals through a new LLC I set up. In 6 weeks, I stripped the company of its foundation, without even stepping foot into the boardroom. Jacob didn't even realize he was bleeding yet, but he would. By month 3, Jacob's grip on Bennett and Sons was slipping. I had quietly poached his 3 most reliable subcontractors. One of them, Ramon, had been working with our family since I was 15. When I showed him the documents, the forged will, and explained what Jacob had done, his jaw tightened. Your dad would have never done that to you. I'm out. One by one, more of the foundation cracked. Deliveries slowed. Work sites missed deadlines. Clients started complaining. And Jacob? He panicked. He started sending mass emails blaming the economy. He even went on a local radio show to try and defend the company. Said we were going through a restructuring. Claimed he was modernizing things. It was pathetic. Then the reporter Maddie had tipped off dropped the first article. It wasn't explosive, but it was enough to light a spark. It raised legitimate questions about changes to Gerald Bennett's will, citing anonymous sources and legal inconsistencies. It didn't name Jacob directly, but anyone who knew the business knew who it pointed to. Clients started pulling out. One of our largest government contracts was postponed pending internal review. Jacob finally called me. Are you behind this? I didn't deny it. You stole from us, I said. This is me collecting. You're destroying Dad's legacy, he shouted. No, I replied. You already did. I'm just making sure it doesn't burn anyone else. He hung up. 3 days later, I got a letter from his lawyer. A cease and desist, accusing me of interfering with business relationships. I handed it to our own attorney. He laughed. Let him try. We've got more than enough evidence to bury him in court. But we weren't done, because Maddie had been keeping one final ace up her sleeve. And when she played it, Jacob wouldn't just lose the company. He'd lose everything. Maddie had stayed quiet through most of it. She was calm, measured. But while I handled the business side, she was digging into something deeper. Our father's medical records. It started with a feeling. Maddie said she remembered something off about Dad's last week. How he seemed more foggy than usual. She thought it was stress or medication. But the hospital logs showed something strange. A medication added to his chart 2 days before he revised the will, the one Jacob used in court. Lorazepam. High doses. Isn't that for anxiety? I asked. Yes, Maddie replied. But in large amounts, it can cause confusion, memory problems, even make someone highly suggestible. She had a friend, an old nursing school classmate, who reviewed the charts. They were shocked. If your dad signed legal documents under that dosage, there's a chance he wasn't even competent to consent. That changed everything. We brought it to our lawyer, who nearly dropped his coffee. This isn't just fraud now, he said. If your brother knew about this and pushed your dad to sign something in that state, it could be elder abuse. And that's criminal. Maddie hadn't just found a loophole. She found the smoking gun. We filed a petition in court to contest the will, citing new medical evidence. Included were affidavits from 2 physicians who reviewed the chart. Our lawyer filed a request for emergency injunction to freeze any sale or transfer of business assets. Jacob was blindsided. Within 48 hours, he was served. Court date, 30 days. And suddenly, the tone shifted. He stopped the public whining. No more interviews. No more emails. He was scrambling, but we were just getting started. The courtroom was cold. Not physically, but emotionally. Jacob didn't look at me or Maddie as we sat down with our attorney. He was flanked by his high-priced legal team, 2 of whom looked like they walked off the set of a TV legal drama. Suits sharp, eyes sharper. But they didn't have the truth. Our lawyer opened with the medical evidence. He presented the lorazepam chart, the affidavits, the will revisions, all neatly laid out like dominoes. The judge listened, eyebrows raised. Then Maddie testified. She told them about Dad's last days. His confusion. The way he asked the same questions again and again. How she'd caught Jacob whispering to him about getting things in order. Then came the handwriting expert. We brought in a certified analyst who compared the signature on the forged will to dozens of documents Dad had signed before. Her conclusion was clear and confident. This was not Gerald Bennett's signature. Jacob's lawyer tried to spin it. Claimed Dad had shaky hands post-surgery. Claimed the witnesses to the signature, friends of Jacob, were legitimate. But under cross-examination, Those witnesses fell apart. One admitted he didn't even remember being there. Another thought it was just a form for insurance. Then came the final nail. The original draft of the will found in Dad's safe